Hello and welcome back to Business 101 Online. I'm your course instructor, Heather Hines. Today we're going to be talking about business ethics and business social responsible behavior, also known as corporate social responsibility, CSR. Now, the idea of business ethics has been around for quite some time, but I believe that, and some people may differ, that really business ethics didn't take off until 2001. What happened in 2001? Well, that would be the big Enron scandal. In 2001, Enron was this large corporation, in 2000, Enron was this large corporation. In mid-2000, their stock price was at $90 per share. By the end of 2001, in about a little over a year, their stock price plummeted to less than $1. So why are people concerned over business ethics? Well, what happened with Enron? What did it affect? It affected lots of stakeholders. Remember, stakeholders are those affected by the business. So it affected the shareholders, those who had ownership in the business and bought the stocks, right? Their stock values went from $90 to less than $1 in about a year's time. It affected those who are lending money to Enron. How can they collect money if the business goes bankrupt? And it affected the employees because now those employees are all unemployed because Enron ceased to exist. So those are just a few of the stakeholders that were affected by Enron's fall. And since then, there have been several scandals in the real estate, mortgage, and banking industries. Now, what happens after a scandal? Well, maybe consumers are no longer willing to buy or don't really have trust to go purchase from companies because they're not sure whether or not that business is working ethically. Maybe entrepreneurs are no longer willing to take their money and risk it and invest it in these companies. And so how do we restore trust in the free market system? Well, we must punish those who have broken the law. We must make it more transparent. And we need to talk about what's ethical versus what's legal. So what's ethical, meaning doing what's right, versus what's legal, meaning just abiding by the law. One of the largest banking scandals started in 2016. That was when Wells Fargo, they revealed that, hey, there are all these fake accounts. They opened up fake accounts for a bunch of their customers without them knowing. And so not only were they fined $185 million, but 5,300 employees were fired over that. The CEO eventually had to step down, and many top management had to step down. And what did that affect? That affected the shareholders, definitely. If you look at the last 5 years for Wells Fargo versus Bank of America, they're one of their top competitors, they have not been doing very well. Their stock price hasn't been doing very well. So how do you read this graph? This graph goes not by stock price, but by percentage of increase or decrease from when I told the graph to start in 2015. So this is a 5-year graph. So Wells Fargo, you'll see they've had some ups and downs, but mainly their stock price hasn't been doing very well. In fact, it's declined in the last 5 years by 13%. The S&P 500, I always like to include that because that's kind of a good, strong indicator of the economy at that time. So the S&P, look, the economy has been doing pretty well. The S&P has increased by 60%. And Bank of America, their stock price took a hit in 2016. In fact, the whole banking industry's stock prices took a hit in 2016. But overall, they are up 117%. So this scandal affected not only customers and employees, but also the owners or the shareholders. So what is ethics? Ethics is behavior that is accepted by society as right versus wrong. Ethics is kind of one of those gray areas where not everybody always agrees, whereas the law is very straightforward and solid, or at least it should be. For example, maybe there is an insurance company that charges 50% more premium for those people who smoke. Is that ethical and is that lawful? Well, according to the Obamacare, the law, yes, they can charge 50% more insurance premium for people that smoke. Is that ethical? Well, some people might say yes, it's ethical because those people who smoke generally cost a company $5,000 to $6,000 more per year in fees for the premiums, and they also typically take more sick days because they're sick more often. So some people might say, yes, that's ethically okay. And some people might say, no, you are being biased against those people who smoke. That's their own lifestyle choice, and you shouldn't, that's not the business of the insurance company. So that's the difference between ethics versus what is written down in the law. Ethics is what people think is right versus wrong. The law is written down and said this is what is okay, this is not what is okay. So how can businesses become more ethical? Well, many times you'll hear, hey, business ethics starts at the top up. So that means that top management must create a corporate code of conduct. They must keep their employees accountable, expect all employees to act ethically, and they must properly train their managers to identify ethical situations and appropriately handle them. In addition, you must set up some type of anonymous way for insiders, those who work for the company, or those people who work with the company or inside the company, to anonymously communicate whether there's wrongdoing, such as whistleblowers. You have to involve outsiders, such as contractors and customers, to have a say of, hey, here's a way for you to communicate with the business what's going on, and maybe allow you to put some input into the code of ethics. And lastly, you must enforce the code of ethics, and I think that's the most important. The code of ethics must be enforced. There are two main approaches to ethics. There's the compliance-based ethics and integrity-based ethics. Compliance-based ethics basically says, hey, we're going to make people ethical by increasing penalties. For example, hey, we're going to make people drive at 60 miles per hour by having all the cops out and giving tickets to anybody who goes over the speed limit. That's compliance-based ethics. Integrity-based ethics is kind of a higher level way of making people comply. That's saying, hey, here is our organization. This is why we have this rule. And you're kind of getting the buy-in from your stakeholders and saying, hey, this is why we have this code of ethics, so please follow our code of ethics. So you might say, hey, to the drivers, we have the speed limit for a reason. It's because, hey, if you hit somebody going at more than 60 miles per hour, you're 30% more likely to inflict not only damage, but loss of life. So please stay at the 60 miles per hour speed limit. Which brings us to our critical thinking question number 1, which has a manager who is writing up all of his employees, and it's asking, okay, is he compliance-based or integrity-based? Please explain your answer. We just talked about business ethics, so let's talk about CSR, or corporate social responsibility. Corporate social responsibility is kind of that big umbrella term for a company's responsibility both towards economics, which is, hey, are they profitable? Their responsibility to uphold the law. Their responsibility towards ethics. We just talked about business ethics. So, hey, are they paying their employees a fair wage, for example? And the last one is environmental, which is, hey, are they making sure they're not polluting the water? Are they making sure they're using recycled reusable products, or are they just trashing the environment? So again, CSR is a business's concern for the welfare of society as a whole. And generally, because CSR is becoming such a big buzzword, they generally like to advertise what they're doing on social media. For example, if you were to go to Coca-Cola's webpage, you'd find a lot of them advertising their CSR, their corporate social responsibility. In fact, when you go to their website, right after where they say, hey, this is a little bit about our company, this is what we sell, they have a whole tab on sustainable business practices. For them, they talk about, hey, this is how we package it, this is how we don't pollute the water. And the next tab is on better shared future. This is their ethical CSR component, where they talk about, hey, this is how we are giving back to the communities that we are doing business in. So CSR, big buzzword, company is a big thing. Shareholders love it. Companies like to advertise what they're doing. It kind of gives consumers the warm, fuzzy feeling when they go purchase that product. They think, oh, I'm doing a good deed when they purchase things that are corporately social responsible. Social media is becoming more and more of something that businesses need to be aware of and keep track of. So for example, if you open up a business, you should definitely, if you have a social media account, you should engage your followers. You should make sure that you think about your messages before posting them. Why? Because once it's out there, it can be found, even if you delete it. You want to offer your customers new content, and you want to make sure that you separate your business and your personal account. Why? Because if you're tweeting about your weekend on your business social media, you might really confuse your customers. Also, let's just say you tweet about you going to church and how wonderful the sermon is. Well, maybe not all of your customers have the same beliefs, so you might lose customers because you have now offended all those people who don't believe the same things that you believe. So make sure that you keep your accounts separate, your personal and your business. That's just good policy. All right, so we just talked about CSR, which is a company's responsibility to the economic, meaning the profit, the legal, upholding the law, ethics, which we talked about for the first half of this chapter, and the environment. The environment is becoming a very big deal, and you'll hear people talking about renewable energy. So by 2030, there's expected to be as many as 40 million green jobs created just from, hey, we need sustainable business practices, so we need companies to come up with ways that we can do that. We need companies to create boxes that can, when you recycle them, they can be recycled 100%, or we need companies to create paper, to create plates that you can eat afterwards. So by 2030, there's expected to be as many as 40 million green jobs created. Another aspect of CSR is ethics. So part of ethics is being responsible to your employees. Really just all your stakeholders, but one of your main stakeholders are your employees, those people who help you stay in business. So what is your responsibility to your employees? That is to create a job where some upward mobility. You want them to have goals. You want to treat your employees with respect, and you want to offer good salaries and benefits. You want to treat your employees well. Why? Because disgruntled employees cost businesses a lot of money. Employee fraud is the most common type of business fraud, and it generally costs businesses about 5% of their annual revenue, and it causes a lot of business failure because of employee fraud. So make sure you treat your employees really well. That concludes Chapter 4. Make sure that you are also reading the chapter, completing the extra credits, and after that, then make sure you answer and turn in your critical thinking questions. Remember, I kind of tried to highlight the critical thinking questions by using these little blue bubbles. So if you see this blue bubble, that means that you really should go look into and look at that slide if you're having trouble on that question. So hopefully this video was helpful. If you found it helpful, maybe you should like it so that I continue making these videos, and I hope you have a good day.